Once again, we do remind you to please silence your cell phone. What's going on? In addition, we kindly ask that you remain in the auditorium for the duration of this session. If you do need to exit, please do so in between presentations by using the side doors in the back of the auditorium. Thank you and enjoy.
If you've been camping before, this picture might spark different memories. Something bonding time, stargazing, the smoky smell of the campfire. Some of you may be familiar with the scout uniform my oldest brother's wearing. For those of you not familiar, Boy Scouts of America was an organization created to install core values in young men to become the ideal citizen and human being. So you might be wondering why I'm in this uniform as a woman. Well, for over a century, Boy Scouts of America was exactly what it sounded like. Boys only. I was in second grade and I watched my oldest brother Chris earn the Eagle Scout rank, the highest honor in scouting. I saw him build projects that helped people, that brought real change to our community. So I turned to my mom and I told her, I'm going to be an Eagle Scout too. She said that was only a boys thing, but I can continue in Girl Scouts and still get my gold award. She wasn't being mean. It just wasn't possible. This roadblock lit a fire within me, one that only grew with time. Then 2019, Boy Scouts of America announced that they were allowing girls into the program for the very first time. I was elated. Me and my sister didn't just join. We created our own troop. We became part of history, the founding class of women in scouting. As with many things, there were setbacks. Being a woman in a predominantly male space is a common and universal experience. But the first summer I went to scout camp, the year girls were allowed, it was alarming. Like the time I was in line for lunch and the boys behind me said that the line would go faster if I were to go back into the kitchen where I belonged, to go make them a sandwich, and to go back home because I didn't belong there. I was 12 and I was confused, but mostly I was determined. If they were going to say this to me, what were they going to say to the next girl? So I became a volunteer to create a safe space that I wish I had. These comments didn't make me bitter. They ended up inspiring me. As I continued through the program, I completed all the courses and requirements needed, and it was finally time for me to decide my Eagle project. I didn't just want to build a bench or plant some flowers. I wanted to do something I genuinely cared about, to help people that knew what it felt like to be told that they didn't belong. This is how I partnered with Mama's House, a nonprofit organization that houses and educates single, financially unstable pregnant women who are often escaping domestic abuse. They needed a pregnancy room and an outdoor eating area, but they couldn't afford it. When I proposed this project to the Eagle Board, they said it was too big, but I promised them that I was going to get it done. I didn't know how I was going to gather the resources, but I knew that my passion and determination were going to get me there. Then, almost a year later, with my troop and community behind me, we did it. We even raised enough money to donate almost $1,000 back to the organization for future projects. Why? Because these mothers needed more than a house. They needed a home. It was a tiring process, but when I went back to visit the room we constructed, I found a mother and child sitting in the rocking chair. Seeing them both smile was what made it all worth it. I knew I was where I was supposed to be. When faced with opposition, it doesn't mean to give up. It means to find your place within. You may not see the impact that you have on others. I don't know where these families are going to be in the next 5 years, but I know that today they have a home because a 12-year-old girl didn't listen to boys in the lunch line. The next time someone tells you you don't belong, remember this. They said girls couldn't be in scouting. Now I'm an Eagle Scout. They said my project was too big. Now families have a home. They told me I should get back into the kitchen. Instead, I basically built one. Because sometimes the place they tell you you don't belong is exactly where you're meant to be. Thank you.
Zach Ostroff? Are you Gabby Ostroff's brother? That's how Miss O'Toole greeted me on the first day of second grade at Birch. It was the first time a teacher ever asked me that question, but definitely not the last. In fact, I've heard that question so many times, I've lost count. The answer is yes, but also no. Yes, Gabby is my sister. She's 3 years older than me. We share the same parents, both love to travel, and spent our summers at Tyler Hill Sleepaway Camp. But that's where the similarities end. Gabby is the kind of student who color codes her notes and probably dreams in flashcards. She studies for hours. Me, I'm more likely to be found building Lego towers or trying to beat my high score in a game of Call of Duty rather than studying for a test. Don't get me wrong, I admire my sister. She was class president at Kennedy for 4 years, crushed the AP capstone program, and is currently the vice president of the movement to address anti-Semitism at Tulane. So when I got to high school, I went in the complete opposite direction. No AP Spanish, no AP capstone, no running for class office. I basically turned my not being Gabby into my whole personality. Some days I'd do my homework, and some days I wouldn't. Sorry, Mom. It became my automatic response to just about everything. I'm not Gabby. Maybe I was trying too hard to be different. Maybe I was tired of living in her shadow. Or maybe I just needed to figure out who Zach was before I can really appreciate being Gabby's brother. Any younger siblings in the room? You know what it's like. It's like being the sequel to a really successful movie. Everyone's already decided what you're supposed to be before you even show up. Your teachers have expectations, your parents have expectations. But here's the funny part about trying so hard not to be someone else. Sometimes you find out exactly who you really are. 4 years later, I've carved out my own path. I've captained the varsity volleyball team, which I was on for 3 years. I've taken 5 AP classes. Turns out I could handle them after all. I'm a part of the leadership program, serve as a class senator, and I'm the president of the fishing club, all because I wanted to. And I did all this while absolutely, definitely not being Gabby. The truth is, I love my sister. We've always been very close, despite the occasional argument. We share lots of laughs, inside jokes, and common interests. The only thing I don't like is how I'm somehow supposed to follow in her footsteps. But here's what I've learned. Being someone's sibling doesn't mean being their exact carbon copy. Success doesn't look the same for everyone. My path, Gabby's path, worked for Gabby, and my path, even with the hours building Legos and playing video games, worked for me. So now, when teachers ask if I'm Gabby's brother, I have a new response. Yes, and I'm also Zach. Because the real challenge is finding the courage to be yourself, even when everyone thinks you're supposed to be someone else. Whether that means being the smart one, the athletic one, the creative one, or some completely unique combination no one's seen before. So maybe that's the moral of the story. Be yourself. Not because it's the same as your sibling or different from your sibling, but because it's you. And if anyone was wondering, yes, I'm still building Lego towers, and yes, I'm still playing Call of Duty. But that's just me being me. And after all that, I'm following Gabby to Tulane. Thank you.
Have you ever had a bad hair day? You know, the ones where you wake up looking like you stuck your finger in an electrical socket. Or when your hair is so knotted, it feels like you'll never be able to get a brush through it again. But trust me, your worst hair day has nothing on the one that I saw last summer at camp. Picture this. I'm walking to my first activity of the day as a CIT, feeling pretty good about my 8th summer at camp. Then, I see what I thought was a tumbleweed rolling towards me. Except, it wasn't exactly a tumbleweed. It was just the most massive hair knot I'd ever seen attached to the head of a 9-year-old girl named Yesenia. Now, Yesenia wasn't just any camper. She was one of the 42 children from my camp's scholarship program that provided free tuition for kids who had to relocate so quickly from Ukraine to America during the war. And she absolutely hated it here at camp. It was really hard for these young children to have to adjust to a new foreign setting after being displaced, and on top of that, having to spend 2 months without their family. Additionally, the obvious language barrier made many of the Ukrainian campers feel alienated. Yesenia specifically, though, was a troublemaker. Her homesickness and loneliness resulted in rebellion and lashing out. She was not used to being without her mother, and especially was not used to not having her attention at all times. She didn't even know how to do most things by herself, one of these things including brushing her own hair. I called her over and attempted to run my fingers through this giant knot, thinking that it could easily be tamed with some detangler and a wet brush. However, this was a much bigger monstrosity than what I anticipated. In my hands was a solid lock of hair, and it was the size of a, well, I'll let you see for yourselves. Yeah, this doesn't even capture how bad it was. We're talking about a solid mass that looked like it was trying to become its own zip code. When I tried to help her, I realized something heartbreaking. She didn't even know how to brush her own hair. Back home, her mother had always done it for her. When another camper translated the question about the last time she'd brushed her herself, Yesenia just burst into tears. And that's when I knew I had to help. I took her hand in mine and we headed straight towards the office. However, I didn't have the time to go back into a bunk and gather hair care materials, so I had to use whatever was available. Unfortunately, I was not at a hair salon, I was just in an office supply closet. All I had was half a bottle of shampoo, a broken wide-tooth comb that had seen better days, a spray bottle of water, and absolutely zero ability to communicate with this girl in Ukrainian. So there we were, sitting in the office supply closet, me armed with my pathetic collection of hair supplies, trying to tackle what looked like a bird's nest gone wrong. Every time I'd pull at the knot, Yesenia would wince. And the only other sound beside her cries was the sound of awkward silence. And if you know me, I don't do well with silence at all. But here's the thing about some moments. You don't always need words. Luckily, I happened to have my iPod on me, and when I clicked shuffle, Money, Money, Money by ABBA came on. To my surprise, she knew all the words. I was shocked, but used it to my advantage. I played the rest of the Mamma Mia soundtrack, and that got her more calmed down and me more focused. Also, the music that I was playing attracted some of my friends and campers over. When they saw what I was working on, they were eager to join in and help me get it out. Some stayed to help me attack the knot from different angles, and others left to grab me oil, detangler, and a real brush. We were now over 4 hours deep, and there was a whole team of us. Even though we had been working on it for so long, we still weren't even halfway done. We were determined to get it out, but we had to head back to the bunks to get ready for dinner. Just as we were leaving the office, one of the nurses saw Yesenia walking, and luckily, she happened to be a hairstylist herself and knew how to deal with matted hair. She took her into her office for about an hour and fully got it out herself. After showers, we head down to the flagpole before dinner. Here, campers and counselors are called up, and it's a time to highlight people's achievements for the day. When the directors of my camp brought up the whole Yesenia hair situation, I was so sure they were going to call me up for dedicating my time to her. But since I didn't actually get it out myself, they did not call me up to flagpole. They did not thank me. They did not give me any recognition for what I did for Yesenia that day. Instead, they called up the nurse who actually got the knot out. Yup, guess the winner really does take it all. I'm not gonna lie, I was really upset about it at first. I remember thinking, what was the point of what I just did? And why did I just waste 5 hours of my day on this girl just to get nothing out of it? For the rest of dinner, I couldn't get these thoughts out of my head. But that was until I saw Yesenia sitting with her bunk and I saw the biggest smile on her face. She finally looked happy in this new setting, and that smile made it all worth it for me. Throughout the rest of the summer, Yesenia went on to make new friends and try sports. She even ended up coming back the next summer. Life has a funny way of surprising us, often leading us to unexpected successes that can turn out even better than what we imagined. For example, let's say you take a challenging AP class and completely fail. But in doing so, you find a new interest or form a new bond with a classmate or teacher. Or maybe you join a gym, and you might never build as much muscle as you wanted to, but instead, you form the confidence and commitment skills you didn't have before. It's all a part of the experience. I would have never thought that something so simple like brushing somebody's hair could lead to a bridge between worlds, but it did. And this whole experience taught me something that I hope sticks with all of you. Untangle your problems even if you can't get the knot out. Because even if something doesn't go in the exact way you planned, doesn't mean that it went completely wrong. Thank you.
Growing up, I probably had 2 to 3 dozen dolls and stuffed animals. Take a look. Yup, there were a lot of them. And the crazy thing is that picture is probably only around half. That panda in the corner is Gil. The American Girl doll sitting in the front is Sage. The big pink unicorn in the back is Pinky. And I could go on and on. Each of them had a name, and each had their own story. Tonight, though, I want to tell you the story of one doll in particular. One that, while she didn't stand out at first, went on to become the one that mattered the most. Dolly. It was my second birthday. My grandma handed me a box wrapped in pink wrapping paper and a big white bow. I eagerly tore open the wrapping paper and reached inside to find a small doll dressed in a polka dot shirt and red pants. I looked at the doll and smiled, but didn't think much of it. "What will you name her?" my grandma asked me. "Dolly," I said. I hugged my grandma and brought Dolly into my room, throwing her onto the floor to join the dozens of other dolls scattered across my pink fuzzy carpet. At that moment, she was just one of many ordinary dolls. Nothing special. Every time my grandma would come over, she would ask where Dolly was. I would run to my room and rustle through my bin of more dolls than a girl my age probably needed. I would find her, dust her off, and bring it to my grandma where we would play with her. We would sit and have tea parties, teach Dolly new gymnastic tricks, and watch Elmo while laying in bed. It was always my grandma, Dolly, and me. But when my grandma left, Dolly would go back into the toy bin, only to be taken out again when she would visit next. Among all of my dolls, there was nothing remarkable about Dolly. My doll Penny had rainbow hair, and Lacey could laugh if I pressed a button. Dolly was just Dolly. A small, simple doll dressed in plain clothes. She didn't sing, didn't light up, and didn't do anything exciting. So time and time again, she would sit in that toy bin, forgotten, until those special days when my grandma visited, when, for some reason, Dolly mattered just a little bit more. And then one day, my world shifted. My grandma didn't come as often, and when I asked my mom why, she explained to me that grandma had something called cancer. She explained to me that grandma was weak and couldn't come to play as much as she did before. When my grandma would come over, I would bring Dolly out of the toy bin, thinking that we would play with her like we used to. But that was far from what happened. Instead of setting the table for a tea party, she would lie on the couch most days or sleep. I watched as she turned from the fun and lively grandma I once knew into somebody that I barely recognized. Her once vibrant, thick red hair slowly vanished, and her skin became as pale as the sheets that she rested under. The warmth and energy that used to fill the room when she was around seemed to fade with each visit. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but I knew that something was changing, something I couldn't fix. Still, desperate to cling on to any sense of normalcy, I would bring Dolly out of the toy bin every time my grandma would visit. Even if she didn't have the energy to play with us anymore, Dolly and I could still sit beside her, keeping her company as she slept. We would sit there for hours, just watching her breathe, hoping for those rare moments when her eyes would flutter open. And when they did, she would smile at the sight of Dolly and me. And for just a second, I could believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. Until it wasn't. I remember the scream that tore through the house when my mom got the call. My grandma had passed away. In a panic, my mom threw everything she could into a bag, yelling for me, my sisters, and my dad to hurry. In the chaos, all I could think of was to grab Dolly. I ran to my bedroom, my heart pounding, ripped open the toy box, and grabbed her by the familiar polka dot shirt. Clutching her tightly, I raced after my mom, hoping somehow that Dolly could make things better, like she always had. Standing at her funeral later that week, I wished for one more tea party with my grandma, Dolly, and I. I wished that this was all a bad dream, and that the next day my grandma would show up at the door with a game planned for us and Dolly. But that wasn't the case, which my young self couldn't come to terms with. When we arrived back home, instead of throwing Dolly into the toy bin and waiting to play with her until the next time my grandma came like I usually did, I carefully placed her on my bed. For some reason, I had no desire to pick up Penny's long rainbow hair or make a joke and press a button to make Lacey laugh. All I wanted was Dolly. Since that day, I haven't spent a single night without Dolly. She has been with me through every milestone. My first time on an airplane, my first day of school, even in those sticky situations we all find ourselves in. She's been a part of every Halloween, every tough day, and every joyful moment. Quietly sitting on my bed, she has always reminded me of my grandma and her love. To this day, Dolly is my biggest source of comfort and has played a huge role in shaping who I am. In fact, she's with me right now. Right over here, representing the space that my grandma can't be here to fill. What I've learned is that Dolly didn't need to be flashy or special to matter. It was never about what she could do, but instead about what she represented. Sure, she didn't have rainbow hair or a button to make her laugh, but she held something far more valuable. She held my grandma. In her simple, worn-out fabric, she carries with her my grandma's love, her memories, and the warmth of every moment that we spent together. Dolly isn't just a doll. She's a link to the person that I love the most. And in that small, quiet way, she's taught me that the things that truly shape us aren't always the ones that stand out. They're the ones that hold meaning. It doesn't always have to be the grand, large things that make a difference. Instead, it's the little things, the unassuming ones, that can carry the biggest weight in our hearts. Thank you.
The idea of fitting in is common, not just for young people, but for all human beings. We dress a certain way, listen to particular music, and even play the same sports in an effort to fit in. We enter our comfort zones and rarely exit. We are creatures of habit. For the first 10 years of my life, I was the prime example of a kid that fit in. I lived in the same neighborhood my whole life, went to nursery school and day camp with all the same friends, and even followed my sister's footsteps into elementary school and dance. For me, it was easy. It felt like everyone knew me and my family. For the first 10 years of my life, I fit in perfectly to my bubble. That all changed when I moved to Merrick in 5th grade from Forest Hills, Queens. When my parents first told me the news, I wasn't very surprised. We had friends in North Merrick, and whenever we'd visit them, my parents would drive around the town looking at houses. As expected as the news was, though, it was a huge change for me. A content, quiet, 5th grade student who wasn't exactly prepared for the unknown. This move came at a time when a lot of kids already have their friends. Was I happy about it? No. Did I want to start over and leave my friends behind? Definitely not. I was going into 5th grade. Turning 10 years old is hard enough. But now, I need to go to a new school, make new friends, and join a new dance studio. How was I going to do that? Every dancer will tell you that a dance studio is like their second home. How was I going to make this new studio feel like home when my home didn't even feel like home? Everywhere I went, I was the odd one out. So now, I'm in 6th grade, and just when it starts to seem familiar, I find myself in yet another school, middle school. And this time, I wasn't the odd one out, or so I thought. You see, many of the friends I made, the friends I still have now, were going to attend Kennedy High School, and I was supposed to attend Calhoun. They were from South, and I was from North. Once again, that idea of needing to find a good fit was so important to me, and my parents supported that. I worked, I advocated, and I was able to join my friends here at Kennedy. While I was with my South friends, though, I was still a bit out. My parents had to drive me all the way from Guam. Well, not Guam, but North Merrick. It was far. Unlike my friends, I couldn't just get up, walk to one of their houses, or meet them at the park. But it was worth it. Coming to Kennedy, I found my people. I found my place. Anticipating that transition to Kennedy, I was excited to try out for Kennedy Kickline. Dance was always a place I was quick to find my right fit, and I knew I wanted to try out. I asked my friends, and we were all excited to get involved, but not one of them were trying out for Kickline. However, I didn't let that stop me. I was the first open gym and interest meeting and didn't have many familiar faces. But you know what? I still tried out. And I made the team. But once again, I became the odd one out. I was the only freshman to make the Kickline team that year. So, I was only a freshman. What's the big deal, right? Well, there are traditions that are class-related and shared experiences you create. I had nobody to share these experiences with. Was it annoying? Yeah. Was it embarrassing? Definitely. But was it worth it? Absolutely. Over my time on Kickline, it actually became a little joke. The only freshman, everyone's little teammate, the only sophomore trying to find my fit with the class above me, and the only junior becoming captain and finding my voice, which allowed me to be captain both junior and senior year. Most recently, I was able to celebrate my senior game called Jackie Day, which was the ultimate odd one out experience. Being the odd one out allowed me to take risks, find my voice, forge my path. Without it, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I could not be more grateful for the experiences I have faced past 10 years old. I've learned to come out of my shell and not be the shy girl I thought I always would be. These past 8 years allowed me to create the best friendships and be part of a team. I would not trade these friends or experiences for the world. So now, I can embrace being the odd one out and use it for whatever the future will hold for me. Thank you.
Bonjour et bienvenue. Je m'appelle Maisie et j'adore la langue et la culture française. Or in English, hi and welcome. My name is Maisie and I love the French language and culture. The famed French author André Gide once said, "Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore." When I first heard this quote, it hit home. Not only because it was originally said in French, but because it describes exactly how I found my love for language, by being brave enough to look beyond. Every December, my family and I set a day aside to discuss the question of the year. Where are we going this summer? We debate destinations, argue over attractions, and dream about where we'll go next. I know how lucky I am to have had these opportunities. I've had the chance to explore Etruscan ruins in Italy, watch the Royal Ballet perform in London, relax along the beaches of the French Riviera, ride roller coasters in Germany, and even go to an Olympic soccer or football match in France, and I wouldn't trade these experiences for anything. There is nothing better than laying out in the sun on a pool floaty in the Mediterranean Sea, listening to music and the sounds of other people having fun and enjoying their summers. But travel isn't just about having fun. It's about learning. Each museum visit, each conversation with locals, each attempt to order food in a new language is an adventure in my mind. Here's something most people don't know about me. I'm incredibly introverted. even when I'm speaking English. So imagine the terror of being thrown into these unfamiliar situations, speaking languages like French, German, or Italian. You'd think that because I'm the only senior still taking French, I'd be more confident speaking it. You would be wrong. I'm that person who rehearses simple phrases 20 times, plans every conversation in advance, and still freezes up when it's actually time to speak. At restaurants, I pick out exactly what I'm going to order, I practice ordering it a few times, and then I try to figure out exactly what the waiter's going to say back to me so I can be prepared for every possible outcome of the interaction. And still, after all that, I can't order anything confidently. But here's the thing about growth. It happens when you're uncomfortable. This summer in France, I pushed myself to speak more French than ever before. And you know what? Every time I stepped out of my comfort zone, something amazing happened. Like that night in Monaco. There we were, stranded after the last train had left. I managed to ask about the bus schedule, completely in French. Unfortunately, all the buses were canceled, so my family sat outside a Steak and Shake at 1 a.m. Yes, they have Steak and Shake in Monaco, looking for taxis because apparently Uber hasn't made it to Monaco yet. Or the great water bottle incident in Paris. It was sweltering hot and we needed water, so I confidently called the waiter over. Une bouteille d'eau, I said, meaning a bottle of water. The waiter, knowing we speak English, thinks I'm ordering in English and hears a potato. Une bouteille d'eau, a potato, get it? After the shared embarrassment had passed, the waiter and I were able to laugh it off together, and it is now a running joke in my family. Anytime I ask about getting a bottle of water, my mom will turn to me with a confused look on her face and go, "A potato?" These moments, the confused looks, the laughter, the eventual understanding, they're not just funny stories. They're how you learn. That potato water bottle mix-up, it taught me to slow down, to enunciate. But more importantly, it taught me that making mistakes isn't the end of the world. Sometimes they're just the beginning of a great story. Every time I travel, every time I force myself to speak French, I'm losing sight of the shore a little bit more. And you know what? The view keeps getting better. My French is improving, yes, but more importantly, so is my self-confidence. Because that's what happens when you step outside of your comfort zone. You don't just discover new places or learn new words, you discover parts of yourself. So maybe André Gide was right. Maybe we can't discover new oceans unless we're brave enough to leave the shore. But what he forgot to mention was this. Sometimes the greatest discoveries happen when they're lost in translation. Au revoir et bon voyage. And no, I won't translate that last part because some things are better in French. Thank you.
Spit it out, Callie. Everyone laughs, even your closest friends. They think it's just teasing, but imagine hearing that your entire life. Hi, I'm Ryan Califano, but you might know me as the Speech Freak. Let me take you inside my head for a second. You know those little hamsters that run on wheels? Well, imagine one running in your brain. Now, imagine it suddenly falling off. Your head starts to hurt, your mouth tightens up, and you're stuck, repeating the same sound over and over until that little hamster gets back on its wheel. That's what having a stutter feels like. That's what happens when my brain works faster than my mouth can keep up. I've tried everything. Speech therapy, tapping my leg under the table like my mom suggested, even taking a deep breath before speaking. Nothing works. It's just who I am, and I'll probably stutter multiple times during this talk tonight. Here's what most people don't get. I can't control it, but that doesn't stop them from laughing. Like during this past football season when I was team captain, I had to break down a huddle. LB is on me, LB is on 3, 1, 2, 3. 10 guys instantly burst out laughing. I was so angry and embarrassed that I snapped, pushing the closest guy and saying words I definitely can't repeat on this stage. But here's the thing. A stutter has nothing to do with how smart you are. It just affects your grades, your IQ, who you are as a person. It just affects how you talk. I mean, Ed Sheeran stutters. So does Steve Harvey. Even James Earl Jones. Yeah, Darth Vader himself has a stutter. The funny part, when I tell people I have a stutter, they usually say, really? I didn't even notice. That's because it only shows up in certain situations. Like right now, doing public speaking, when I'm exhausted at the football practice, when my mind is racing with a million thoughts. You know what's really interesting? My stutter is the only thing I've been mocked for. My weight, the size of my fingers, my height, you name it. I've probably been bullied for it. So right now, I want you to think of someone who's bullied you. Maybe if they've done it once or done it for years. Got that person in mind? I'm willing to bet anything that person faces their own challenges in their own life. Maybe they get that starting role on the sports team or that leadership role, so they try to fill that void by making you feel small. It's a defense mechanism. Look, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Have there been nights where I've gone home angry, frustrated, and upset? Yes, absolutely. But I've learned something important. Be an umbrella, not a sponge. Let me explain. A sponge soaks up every insult, every mean comment, every laugh, until it's heavy and dripping with hurt. But an umbrella, rain just slides right off. When you're an umbrella, you can shrug and say whatever to those mean comments, instead of letting them sink in and drive you crazy. So here's what I've learned from being the speech freak. 1, brace your insecurities. Everyone's got them. Nobody's perfect, and that's including the people making fun of you. 2, be an umbrella. Let those mean comments roll right off. And 3, well, try and smile through the storm, because after every storm, there's always a rainbow. And hey, if I stutter during this talk tonight, whatever. That's just me being me. Thank you.
Do you know when you're ordering Dunkin' and you can't decide between getting 6 or 12 donuts? So you obviously go for the dozen because why not? But then you get home, open the box, and you realize that your favorite Boston cream donut is missing. Total disappointment, right? That's kind of how I felt about my high school sports career. Let me explain. In high school, you get 12 chances to play varsity sports, 3 seasons every year for 4 years, the perfect dozen. But freshman year, I decided to skip spring. Honestly, I thought I needed a break, maybe focus on my grades, hang out with my friends more, you know. But looking back as a senior now, that decision has been living rent-free in my head. At first, I was obsessed with that missing season, like when you can't stop thinking about that missing donut. I kept wondering, what if I had played? Would I be a better athlete? Could I have helped the team? But here's the thing. Dwelling on what's missing made me blind to everything I actually did have. And let me tell you, those 11 seasons, they were pretty epic. I'm talking about bus rides where we'd blast music so loud our coach threatened to make us walk home. She never did. Team pasta parties where we definitely carb-loaded way more than necessary. Those early morning practices where we were basically zombies but still showed up. Games where we played our hearts out, sometimes won, sometimes lost, but always had each other's backs. Inside jokes that absolutely no one else understands. And friendships that were made during preseason but lasted way beyond the final whistle. But the real plot twist, those 11 seasons taught me stuff I never would have learned sitting in a classroom, like actual life lessons that hit different. Number 1, the grind is real. Nobody's posting about those 6 a.m. practices or the weekends spent at tournaments instead of hanging out with your friends. But that's where the magic happens. My basketball coach always says, discipline isn't about doing it when you feel like it. It's about doing it when you don't. And yeah, it took me way too long to realize that she was actually right. Number 2, being a star player isn't everything. Look, we've all dreamed about being the hero who scores the winning basket, but I learned pretty quickly as junior captain that one player's stats don't mean anything if the team isn't working together. Sometimes the best play isn't taking the shot, it's making the pass. Number 3, failing isn't the end. Remember last year's Down the Gym game? Yeah, that was rough. But every missed shot, every lost game, every messed up play, they all taught me something. Now when I mess up, I try to think, okay, what can I learn from this? Instead of beating myself up about it. Number 4, time management is no joke. Junior year almost broke me, trying to balance AP classes, sports, and having some kind of social life felt completely impossible. But between all the practices, games, and studying, I figured it out. Even managed to join Student Government Executive Board. Still not sure how I survived that. Number 5, stay humble or life will humble you. Nothing beats seeing your name in the local paper after a big game. But the second you get cocky, that's when everything starts falling apart. I learned pretty quickly to celebrate the wins, but stay hungry for the next ones. Here's what it comes down to. You can either focus on what's missing or appreciate what you have. That missing season, yeah, it would have been cool to have a perfect dozen, but these 11 seasons shaped who I am. The early mornings, the tough losses, the amazing wins, and the lifelong friendships. So maybe having 11 incredible seasons instead of 12 perfect ones makes for a better story anyway. Because life isn't about having everything perfect. It's about making the most of what you've got. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. Shout out to Kennedy and everyone at Belmar Merrick who has helped make these past 4 years unforgettable. You all taught me that sometimes the best things in life don't come in perfect dozens. Thank you.
Smith, Goldsmith, Baker, Cooper. Ever wonder why so many last names are just jobs? Thousands of years ago, your name told your story. The son of a baker became a baker. The daughter of a seamstress became a seamstress. Your profession wasn't just about what you did, it was who you were. This is my grandfather, Michael Schwed, a lawyer, a storyteller. The man that taught me that inheritance isn't just about names or trades, it's about values, stories, and the person you choose to become. Every Friday night of my childhood followed the same wonderful ritual. My parents would go out for the evening, and I'd get to spend the night with my grandparents. Every night, without fail, Grandpa Mike would choose a movie from what he called the middle ground, something that wasn't quite his generation and wasn't quite mine. Maybe it was his way of bridging a connection between our two generations, or maybe he just liked watching me squirm at the scary parts. One vivid memory that I have is when my grandfather put on the movie Coraline. My friends and family know that I absolutely hate scare movies, and when I was younger, Coraline was no exception. But what really stuck with me from that night were the questions that I asked him in between the scenes. How was the universe created? I asked him. He told me that there was a female creator that had the power to envision a universe, and a male creator that had the power to create that envisionment. He then told me that my parents were these same creators, and that I was my own universe, and that I was special. But his stories weren't the thing that made me want to be like him. It was who he was when the stories ended. I remember my grandmother shouted from across the room, "Don't listen to him, he's lying," as my grandpa told me outrageous stories. The funny thing about Grandpa's stories, though, is that the most outlandish ones usually turned out to be true. One such story is his infamous Nathan's hot dog story. Whenever the topic of our family history comes up, he would always preface with this story. When my relative first came from Europe to the United States, he was walking in New York City and came across a man in desperate need of a loan. Being generous, my relative gave the man the loan, and this business later became Nathan's famous hot dogs. This story taught me to be kind to those even if they are strangers. You see, my grandpa is a criminal defense attorney. I remember sitting there face scrunched up asking him, "Why do you want to help bad people? Why do the criminals back on the street?" Venus was one of the bad people that my grandfather defended. Now, I can't go into exactly what Venus did because there are kids in the audience, but all that needs to be said is that it wasn't great. My grandpa, the person, did his job and kept Venus out of trouble. But my grandpa, the person, went beyond just helping Venus and helped him legitimize himself in society. Later on, with my grandfather's assistance, Venus went on to become the landlord of many buildings as well as the owner of a series of successful restaurants. And then there's this coincidence that seems like fate. I was following in his footsteps in the most unexpected way. Like my grandfather before me, I became an EMT with Belmore Merrick Emergency Medical Services. I hadn't even known he had been an EMT until after I joined. Sometimes the paths we choose to take are already in our blood. One afternoon, when my mom picked me up from one of my shifts as an EMT, she told me that my grandpa had been an EMT before me, as if I already knew. I later learned that my grandpa was driven to learn life-saving skills after the tragic loss of his young daughter, so that no other family would have to experience a similar tragedy. Even after spending countless hours as a lawyer, he dedicated himself in his limited free time to becoming a certified EMT. This truly testifies to the person that my grandpa is. You know what's funny about inheritance? It's not just about names or trades anymore. It's about the courage to stand up for others, the commitment to making your community better, and the wisdom to see beyond surface judgments. My grandpa didn't just teach me about the law, he taught me about justice. He didn't just tell me stories, he taught me that stories can help bridge connections. He didn't just tell me to help people, he taught me that helping people is the most important profession of all. I can remember it like it was yesterday, the day I decided to become a lawyer. I was discussing with my family about which career path I wanted to take as college and applications were drawing near. In my mind, the only way to be successful and help out was to become a doctor and help save lives. But there was one problem. I couldn't hurt people. The thought of sticking someone with a needle or an IV made me sick. And then, as if through divine intervention, something told me to become a lawyer. Something told me to become the man that I'd idolized from such a young age. I wanted to become a lawyer. I wanted to become just like my grandfather. They say the son of a cobbler becomes a cobbler. Well, I'm the grandson of a defender of the defenseless. The man that taught me that success isn't measured by what you're able to take, but more importantly, what you're able to give back. So yes, I'm going to become a lawyer. Not because it's in my name, but because it's in my heart. Because my grandfather didn't just pass down a profession, he passed down a purpose. Thank you.
$125,126 miles. That's how far our 2014 Toyota Sienna XLE traveled over 10 years. But how do you measure distance in memories? And backseat arguments with my brothers? And road trip snacks and sing-alongs? And the countless times I dozed off against those windows, waking up just as we pulled into the driveway? That van. It was more than just a car. It was my childhood on wheels. It was a time capsule filled with memories. Elementary school drop-offs, weekend sleepovers at friends' houses, family road trips to Great Wolf Lodge, saying goodbye as we drove my brothers to college in Ohio. Probably half the grade has been in it, and every friend was mesmerized by that automatic door button. They would sit there and play with that button for hours on end and never get sick of it. That van was as much a part of growing up as the Shopkins collections, binge watching Austin and Ally, and collecting Beanie Boos. So, when my mom told me she was selling it, my world stopped. Her reasoning made sense. I'd be driving soon, and we didn't need a 7-seater anymore. Or 8, if you count the times we had to shove all my friends in there. But all I could think was, how am I supposed to live on my... I grew up in that van. You can't just get rid of it. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about the van at all. This was about everything changing. Suddenly, I'm expected to drive myself places. College talk isn't just talk anymore. It's applications and essays and life-changing decisions. Getting rid of that van felt like getting rid of my permission to be a kid. There were countless days I would have panic attacks alone in my room about my future, and if I'd be as successful as my parents, and even my brothers, they all seemed to have it set, and all I could think was, how am I supposed to live on my own and become a real adult? But here's what I've learned after months of panicking about my future. Growing up doesn't mean you're leaving your childhood behind. Maybe I can't ride in the back of our minivan anymore, but I can still blast Ross Lynch songs. Yes, all the Austin Ally songs are still on my playlist. I'm writing college essays, but I'm also rediscovering my love for coloring thanks to Addison and the Coco Wild collection. I'm waiting on college decisions, but I'm also watching Princess and the Frog for the 100th time. Life isn't choosing between growing up and staying young. It's about carrying the best parts of both with you. Sure, the minivan is gone,
But the memories it held, those are what I still hold on to. The truth is, your childhood doesn't end when your mom sells the family minivan. It lives on in Disney movie marathons, coloring book sessions with your best friends, and in the songs you still know all the words to. Growing up isn't about letting go of who you were, it's about bringing that person with you as you figure out who you're becoming. Maybe that's the real lesson from that Toyota Sienna. Some things you outgrow, but memories, those stick with you the whole ride. Thank you.
Have you ever felt like a stranger in a place you used to call home? Imagine spending 8 summers in a place, calling it your second home, only to suddenly feel like you don't belong. That's what happened to me this summer at Camp Kennybrook, where my dream job turned into what felt like a nightmare. Picture this, it's counselor orientation and I'm buzzing with excitement. After years of being a camper, I'm finally on the other side. When I find out I'm getting the second youngest girls, 8 and 9-year-olds, I'm ecstatic. 11 little girls who I'm going to guide, mentor, and hopefully inspire. Opening up all the girls' trunks, taking out their clothes, bedding, and bunk games, it made me think of my old days when I was a camper. My co-counselors and I packed all the girls' trunks after 2 days filled with enthusiasm about our camper's arrival. But you know what they say about the best laid plans. Night 1. A homesick camper is crying so hard she could barely breathe. I'm sitting with her on the porch at 2 a.m., trying to think of every camp counselor who has ever spoken to me, but my words feel meaningless, her sobs are getting louder, and the other girls are starting to wake up and cry too. Night 2. Another camper is having panic attacks about sleeping up on the top bunk. I sleep up on the top bunk too, I tell her cheerfully. She makes it up there, and then proceeds to throw up everywhere. Ever clean throw up at 3 a.m. while trying not to wake up 10 other girls? Trust me, it's not in any camp counselor manual. But wait, it gets better. During rest hour, 2 girls get into a fight, ending with one of the girls locked in the bathroom, literally banging her head against the door. The next day, the same girl decided to make a break for the woods during a staff meeting. So yeah, I had to organize a search party for a 9-year-old. Here I was, in the place I'd loved for 8 years, counting the time until my next day off. Instead of singing camp songs, I was counting the hours between my 3 nights off per week. My friends and I would gather on our breaks, not to share funny stories about our campers, but to complain. The magic of camp had disappeared, instead replaced by exhaustion and self-doubt. Here I was calling my mom to complain about the summer when she said, "You're going to regret not making the most out of the small time you have left here." That really sunk into me. Here's the thing about being a counselor. It's not about you. It's about the 11 little girls who are away from home, scared, excited, and overwhelmed, and looking to you for guidance. When I finally realized that, everything started to shift for me. Instead of dreading the next crisis, I started preparing for it. When girls would feel homesick, I would teach them how to make string bracelets to take their mind off of being home. When the girl would cry about her top bunk, I would sit up there with her until she fell asleep. When 2 girls would get into fights, I would tell them that it's okay to get into fights, but it's more important to overcome them. Slowly, something amazing happened. The girl who couldn't sleep through the night, she ended up helping other homesick campers. The top bunk terror, by the end of the summer, she was doing gymnastics up there, which created a whole new set of problems, but that's another story. Looking back now, I realize that growing up means seeing things from the other side. It means understanding that sometimes the hardest experiences are the ones that lead to the most important growth. That summer taught me something crucial. When you don't feel like you belong in the place that you love, maybe it's not about going back to what was comfortable. Maybe it's about growing into a better version of yourself, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Thank you.
October 28th, 2012. The day before Hurricane Sandy made landfall, the world was silent. I was huddled in my neighbor's attic playing card games with my brother while my father laid down sandbags outside. We could feel the anticipation pressing down on us. It was the calm before the storm. The next morning shattered that calm. I woke up to chaos. Our house, the place I'd always known as home, had been destroyed. Our clothes were soaked, our furniture waterlogged, and all of our memories were swept away. Everything I knew, everything that had defined my life, had been gone forever. In the aftermath, we moved from place to place, hotels, friends' houses, anywhere that offered a roof over our heads. The lack of consistency was shocking, but as Halloween approached, the holiday offered a rare sense of hope. The PTA organized a trunk-or-treat event to support those displaced by the storm. My brother and I, dressed in our matching boxer costumes, complete with old gym shorts and old boxing gloves, raced from car to car, thrilled to still be able to celebrate our favorite holiday together. It was a reminder that joy can still be found even in the hardest of times. Then, amidst the chaos, something else became clear. Neighbors, who were once strangers, stepped forward with open arms, offering warm meals, places to sleep, and words of comfort. Those acts of kindness left a lasting impact on me, showing me the true power of community in times of need. We leaned on one another to navigate the uncertainty ahead. It was in those days that followed that I discovered a different kind of calm, a kind of calm that comes after the storm, a peace that comes with knowing you're not facing it alone. Weeks later, we found ourselves at the Red Roof Inn, a temporary home for 6 long weeks. Yes, it was challenging. The space was limited, and we often found ourselves driving each other crazy. However, with no possessions to distract us, all we had was each other. This period became an unexpected opportunity for us to grow closer as a family. Each evening after school, my brother and I would go to the video game store in the nearby mall to play Wii Sports. We frequently dined out as a family, exploring new foods and restaurants. It was our chance to share stories about our day and escape the confines of the hotel room. It was during this time that I realized the things that were truly important, not belongings, but the families and communities that we belong to. At school, the social worker collected donations for me and other students impacted by the storm. To my surprise, many of these donations were Mickey Mouse themed. She knew my lifelong love for the character. Before the storm, my world was filled with Mickey Mouse. I had Mickey Mouse pajamas, Mickey Mouse blankets. I even had a Mickey Mouse popcorn maker. So to receive these donations, it showed me that it was the small details, like knowing my love for Mickey Mouse, that showed me that people saw me and wanted to help. Familiar items brought a sense of comfort, and I found something to look forward to in the little things. It wasn't the actual donations I enjoyed. Okay, I did enjoy playing with my new toys, but it was the thought that I have so many people who care about me and want to help that made me feel special. My mom often said, "It's just a house." She reassured things could be worse. At the time, I couldn't see how that could be true. I mean, we were homeless. How could it possibly get worse than that? Looking back now, I see that we were not homeless, we were houseless. Home is not a place, it's the people who love you, the ones who make you feel safe. In the end, I learned that it wasn't the house that mattered. It was that my family was safe, together. This lesson about the power of community and connection, it turns out it runs in my family. You see, years before I was born, my grandfather, Bernie Hoffman, founded Twin Oaks Day Camp with my grandmother and 2 best friends. Even though I never had the chance to meet him, I feel his presence every summer when I step on grounds. Above the dugout hangs a promise. Bernie Hoffman, the man who would never let a camper leave the baseball field without a smile. My grandfather understood something I came to realize in the wake of the storm. True meaning isn't found in buildings or belongings, but in the connections we form with each other. Much like the community that rose up after Hurricane Sandy, Twin Oaks transformed strangers into friends every summer. Hurricane Sandy taught me that when storms come, and they will come, what matters isn't what you lose, but who stands beside you. My grandfather knew this too. His legacy isn't in the physical camp, it's in the 50 years of the smiles, the friendships, and the moments of connection that happen there every day. By my new definition of home, I can proudly say that Twin Oaks is also my home, because I have so many people there, especially my grandfather, watching over me. In a world where we're more often concerned with Wi-Fi connections than human ones, both Sandy and Twin Oaks taught me the same lesson. It's the bonds between people that weather away any storm. I will always remember the storm, but what resonates even more are the memories of Halloween, dinners with my family, and my community support. In the aftermath of loss, there lies the opportunity to build something even stronger, a community bound by not what we have, but by who we have. Thank you.
I was tired of being tired of being tired. Every single day felt the same. Every day I was waking up, going to school, then cheer, then doing my homework. It was like I was a robot stuck in a never-ending cycle, a hamster on a wheel, if you'll say. I was moving through life feeling like this for as long as I can remember, checking out boxes on my to-do list every day, writing down my homework agenda, but never stopped to ask myself, what is the point? Why am I here why am I doing all this if I'm going to leave anyway? Why did everything feel so repetitive, so lifeless? Even though I was doing everything I was supposed to do, I still felt empty. Even after I led council meetings, even after I stayed up late studying, even after I planned events to empower my community, even when I pushed the exhaustion and doubt, even when I pushed the feeling of leading, feeling like too much, guess what? I still felt empty. Now, for a while, I thought I was having an existential crisis. The girl you see here today felt that she was pouring all her energy and hard work into school, friendship, and community work, but nothing was adding up to anything real. During this time, my junior year, I hit a wall. This wall caused me to question my worth. It caused me to find the strength to dig deeper and ask myself the questions I was afraid of asking. Why am I here? What is my purpose? A few months later, I attended a gala. Erica Ford, a powerful advocate for reducing violence, was one of the speakers. Ford has spent over 30 years empowering individuals and families to break the cycle of violence and promote peace. Through her organization, Life Camp Inc., she has fostered alternative conflict resolution systems in which communities call her team when conflicts arise. Listening to her speak was transformative. She said something that really hit me and stuck with me for a while. She asked, "What's stopping you from chasing your dream?" She didn't ask everyone in the room to share their dream. The energy shifted. People were excited. One person wanted to become the president of Haiti, another a singer, another a contract lawyer. Ford pointed out something so simple yet so profound. Everyone has a dream. Dreams have a way of lighting up our souls. They make us feel like anything is possible. They give us hope and courage, but somewhere along the way, we forget about them. We see the staircase in front of us and we're doubt if we're strong enough to climb it. Now, may we feel failure, may we feel we're not good enough, but Ford reminded everyone that day, and this day as well, everyone sitting in these seats, that everyone has the power to be who they want to be. The only thing coming in between us and our goals is ourselves. No one is tying us down or telling us we can't. It's all in the palm of our hands. But it begins with one single step. Turn that wish into a plan, that plan into action, and that action into momentum is essential to reach your dreams. Think about the people who came before you. My great-grandmother was the daughter of two formerly enslaved individuals. My grandmother faced the crack epidemic of the 1980s, and my grandfather integrated PS 131 enduring racial slurs and hatred just to get an education. These people faced unimaginable challenges. They persevered. They fought for a life they knew they might not see. They carved out a path so I could stand here before you all today with dreams and possibilities they only dreamed of. Each step we take in building our dreams aren't the sacrifice of those who came before. So we know that everyone dreams, and we just take one step towards our dream. And we have people here, past and present, helping to foster the growth. So is our purpose simply to dream? Maybe, but I think it's more than that. Our purpose is what we do with those dreams. It's how we turn them into something real, something that impacts the world around us, not only to leave a legacy, but to simply make a contribution to advance the world and communities around us. When we take just one step towards our dream, we create meaning. We honor our ancestors and we move humanity forward. Yes, getting good grades and working hard is important, but life isn't about achieving goals. It's about finding fulfillment, creating happiness, and making a contribution. Your career is not your dream. Your GPA is not your dream. Those are just goals. What's that thing in the back of your mind? Now, what matters is that you believe in your potential, that you nurture your dreams, because I've seen doubt, I've seen hurt, I definitely felt like an outcast, but now I see resilience, I see courage, I see hope, and a purpose. Keep moving towards those dreams, not just for yourself, but for those who came before and for those here now. Because you're not just building your future, but you're carrying a torch for the next generation. So again, why are we here? Why are we continuously moving forward? Why don't we just quit while we're at it? Stop creating these good habits and stuff. Slack off, right? It might look different for each of us here tonight, but I believe it begins with a dream. No dream is too big, no vision is too far, Don't settle for where you are today. Keep moving towards those dreams, not goals, because your future is counting on you. Thank you.
From a young age, most, if not all, of my friends were put into sports. But if you know me, you know I was never really the athletic type. Instead of kicking a soccer ball or shooting a basketball, you would find me holding a paintbrush or colored pencils. I have always been more of an artist. For as long as I can remember, I've been taking art classes in and out of school, and it's something I continue to do every day. As I got older, my love of art expanded into every kind of media. I took piano and singing lessons, and although those skills never really stuck, I am still able to appreciate every kind of music. Any of my friends and family will tell you I listen to the strangest variety of music. But what I love most about the music I listen to are the lyrics and how they speak to me, translating directly into my favorite art form, writing. I write everything. Every thought that I have is written down. Whether it's in a notebook or in my notes app, it is in writing. More specifically, it is almost always written as a poem. Writing poetry is something I do often as a way to express my emotions, and it's just something I have a knack for. But the real question is, why should any of you care? Well, I'll tell you. It's probably because I hate everything that I draw, sing, or write. In fact, I even hated this speech at first. I am by far my own biggest critic. But I have learned that over time, the less I overanalyze everything I do, the more I start to like it. Although I have been drawing for most of my life, I still don't really think I'm that great at it. When I was around 10 years old, I took a class on the style of Picasso. And in that class, we had to create a drawing that was Picasso-esque. So I drew whatever came to my mind in that style. And for the longest time, I hated it. But of course, my parents loved it. And recently, I have also started to like it more. But if you ask me about any piece I have done within the past year, I will tell you straight away that I hate it. Even if I don't fully believe it's bad, I'll still hate it. But this self-deprecation isn't something that discourages me. It only does the opposite and motivates me to do better than I once have. And while I am definitely not the best singer, nor do I remember how to play piano, taking those classes taught me how to read music, and I'm honestly pretty confident that if I tried to learn a new instrument or even reteach myself piano, it wouldn't be as difficult as it could have been if I had never had that musical background. And again, of course, my parents think I'm a great singer, but you will never hear me singing anywhere outside of the shower. But unlike my singing and drawing, my writing is something that I am almost always proud of. Everything I write is everything I go through, and is yet completely subjective. Even if it goes through changes or revisions, even if I don't always like it, I'm able to appreciate what it took to get me there, and the fact that I was able to persevere. Although at times I may have been less motivated and wanted to quit, looking down at my work and it not being what I had dreamed of, I made it what I wanted to be, I kept going, and I learned to love it along the way. Because I do this all for myself, especially since I never let anyone read what I write. Thank you.
Look at this photo. That's me, the flyer in the middle with the huge, ridiculous smile on my face like I just won the lottery. This photo was taken at the UCA National Competition in Orlando 2 years ago, and yes, I really do make these faces during competitions. I know, I look ridiculous. I remember the first time I saw these photos, I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe, thinking to myself, you look like a crazy person. But here's the thing about these insane competition faces. They're probably the most honest photos ever taken of me, because whether I like it or not, My face tells a whole story. I have always been someone who is terrible at hiding how I feel. Happy, my whole face lights up. Upset, I might as well have a storm cloud over my head. Whether I want to be or not, I tend to be an easy-to-read person, and I hate this. Before competitions, I get super nervous. Even though I try to stay positive and motivate my team, everyone can see right through my fake smile. But there's this saying in cheerleading, leave everything on the mat. This means to put all the hours we use for practice, all the fixes that we have made, and all of our energy into that one performance. Even if I'm not listening to myself, I like to say this before competitions because I know how moving it is. Here's something interesting though. I have the worst memory out of anyone I know. Ask my friends. I tend to forget what I had for lunch yesterday, important assignments unless written down, and my keys while I'm holding them. But those 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the mat, I remember every single second. Every count, every motion, and every breath. Time slows down, and suddenly, I'm more present than I've ever been. Why? Because for once, I'm not thinking about what's next or what's happened before. I'm just there. I have learned that being so present in and truly living in the moment is something so special and not to be taken for granted. It made me realize something. Maybe my terrible memory isn't because my brain doesn't work right. Maybe it's because I'm not really present in those moments. Maybe I'm just going through the motions. This is my senior year, my last year of high school, my last season of cheer. And I don't want to just go through it. I want to live it, really live it, like those 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the mat. Because here's what cheerleading has taught me. When you're truly present, when you're feeling every moment instead of just passing through, 2 minutes and 30 seconds can become a memory that lasts forever. So maybe having an expressive face isn't such a bad thing. Maybe it's just proof that I'm truly living it. And that girl in the photo, the one with the crazy competition face, she's not just performing. She's present. She's alive. She's leaving everything on the mat. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you.
Be serious. These periodic tables won't memorize themselves, my teacher warned, just as my friend passed me a note. Inside was a horrible drawing of me, and from deep in my belly, the giggle started bubbling. I tried to hold it in, but out came what my friends call the loudest, most obnoxious, most distinct laugh you've ever heard. Don't believe me? Ask my friends, who say, "Shelby, stop laughing, my ears hurt." Ask my sister, who yells, "I'm trying to sleep, be quiet." Ask my teachers, who plead, "Focus on your work and stop laughing." Even my dog tilts her head in confusion at this strange noise coming from my mouth. This isn't just any laugh. It's a family tradition. At dinner time, my dad will start laughing at his own jokes, and my mom will beg, "Don't encourage him," trying desperately to steer the conversation back to normal topics. But even as she's telling him to stop, she can't help but let out her own howl of a laugh, one she inherited from my pop-pop, the laughing king of our family. Pop-Pop was the master of making people laugh. He'd add inappropriate commentary to movies, sue me for hours doing magic tricks, and my favorite move, he'd eat an amazing dessert and declare, "You girls won't like this." I'd crack up, wanting that dessert even more. But you know what's funny? Scientists still can't fully explain what makes us laugh, but they do know something interesting. Laughter is contagious because of something called mirror neurons. When you hear someone laugh, your brain wants to join in. It's like a ripple effect. I've seen this firsthand. Like during that chemistry class when my teacher's serious face cracked and soon the whole class was in stitches. Or when I moved up from JV to varsity basketball and spent the rest of the season on the bench my freshman year. Serious face cracked and spent the rest of the season on, JV to varsity my freshman year and spent the rest of the season on the bench. But the best moments of laughter often come from real life, like when my mom got her finger stuck in an electric mixer on Christmas Eve while trying to be Rachel Ray. Don't worry, she was fine, and she'd end up laughing harder than any of us. But laughter isn't just about the funny moments. Sometimes it's about getting through the hard ones. A few years ago at a family dinner, Pop-Up stood up to make what we thought would be one of his usual funny speeches. Instead, he announced his end was coming soon. He'd been battling cancer for a decade. His only request when he went, no crying, laughter only. I ran from the table crying that day. Our time together changed after that. No more movie commentary, no more magic tricks, and no more jokes. When the call came that he passed away, I remembered, no crying, laughter only. At the funeral lunch, while everyone sat in somber silence, the waiter brought dessert to everyone except my sister. As he hurried off to get her a slice of cake, she began to eye my plate. Not missing a beat, I took a huge bite of cake and said, "You're not going to like this." For a moment, there was silence. Then, like a wave, the laughter came. Alarm bells, rooster calls, and wolf howls all mixed together. Pop-Pop's legacy living on in our shared laughter. That's the thing about laughter. It isn't just a response to something funny. It's a connection, a way to turn stress into strength and grief into remembrance. It's a reminder that not everything is always so serious. So maybe my laugh is too loud, obnoxious, distinct, or annoying, but it's mine, a blend of my dad's morning rooster call, my mom's wolf howl, and Pop-Pop's chuckle. It's a reminder that humor has value, and sometimes the best thing we could do is just laugh. Because imagine if instead of arguing or crying or panicking, we laughed. Think about that ripple effect. One laugh leading to another and to another until we're all sharing in that moment of joy together. So go ahead, laugh. Be loud, be distinct, be you. Who knows, maybe your laugh will start the next ripple. Thank you.
Do you see it? How about now? Right there, that tiny freckle in my eye, the one that once felt like my biggest flaw. You know how some people have a love-hate relationship with their curly hair or crooked smile? Well, I had a hate-hate relationship with this tiny dot in my eye. For years, it haunted me. When I was younger, I would spend hours in the mirror fixated on my eye that was so different from the rest. I was so convinced there was something wrong with me that I begged my parents to take me to the doctor. Multiple doctors. Spoiler alert, it turns out being unique isn't actually a medical condition. All I wanted was to blend in, to be normal, whatever that meant. I became an expert at turning my head just right in photos, at deflecting when people noticed it, and making myself smaller to avoid standing out. Then, something interesting started to happen. People would point to my eye and say, "Oh my God, is that a freckle? That's so sick." And I don't mean sick like illness. They meant sick like cool. But I was so stuck in my own head that I'd immediately respond, "Ugh, I know, it's disgusting." Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how we humans are really weird about difference? We say we want to stand out, but we spend most of our time trying to fit in. We celebrate uniqueness, but panic when we discover it in ourselves. Imagine if we actually got what we thought we wanted. A world where everyone looked exactly the same. Same height, same features, same everything. Sounds more like a nightmare than a dream, right? Because here's what took me way too long to realize. Our so-called imperfections aren't bugs in the system. They're features. They're not glitches. They're signatures. Think about it. Cindy Crawford's mole became her trademark. Seal's facial scars are a part of what make him striking. And yeah, my freckle, it's literally a one-of-a-kind mark that make my eyes uniquely mine. Now when people notice it, instead of shrinking, I smile. Because my freckle isn't just a dot in my eye. It's a reminder that being different isn't something that happened to me. It's something that's part of me. I want you to think about something you've considered a flaw. Maybe it's physical, like my freckle. Maybe it's a personality quirk that makes you feel like you don't quite fit in. Hold that thought in your mind. Now, what if that exact thing you're thinking of isn't actually a flaw at all? What if it's more like your signature? Because here's what I've learned. When we start to embrace our differences, something magical happens. We create a space for others to do the same. It's like starting dominoes of self-acceptance. See that freckle now? That's not an imperfection anymore. That's my signature, my superpower, my story. So what's yours? What makes you uniquely, unmistakably you? Whatever it is, that gap in your teeth, that annoying laugh, That weird way you tell stories? Stop hiding it. Because our differences aren't mistakes that need fixing. They're details that make our stories worth telling. And your story, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting without that thing you're trying to hide. So let's make a deal. Starting today, we stop trying to erase our freckles. Instead, we celebrate them, we share them, we own them. Because in a world that often encourages us to blend in, our differences aren't our weaknesses. They're our superpowers. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I know it's been a long evening, but I do want to just take a quick moment, if you'd give me a second, to congratulate all of you. It's been a long, long process. They've worked incredibly hard with each other, independently. They've created this culture and this infectious atmosphere to get us to this point. So a credit to them, and of course their peers who went earlier. I want to thank our administration, our principal, Mr. Olmberg, my department chairperson, Mrs. Donaldson, for the support of this program. Of course, all the parents who have supported them at home. And thank them all again. Thank all of you. Have a great night. Thanks for coming.